Hi, this is John. A week or two ago, I did an interview with Alex Sofronas, and he did a great job. He sent me the video, and I split it into three pieces. I hope you enjoy it. Feel free to comment, like, and share. Your friends will know you're smart. Enjoy.
Hello, and welcome to the Marketing Times Analytics Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Sofronas, and today I'm on with John Miglosh. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, I'm president of the Wisconsin Direct Marketing Association for a number of years. I'm also the founder of Miglosh Marketing, so I have about 40 years of direct marketing consulting, have launched a lot of catalogs, have worked with about 80 different catalog companies. I pioneered the use of computers in marketing, believe it or not, and especially machine learning. Um, Back in the mid 90s. So I've done thousands of machine learning models and put them in the mail, unlike most of the data scientists alive today.
Hmm, interesting. So, you say you worked with a lot of different catalog companies. So, can you tell us about what those placements were like and how they served the customer?
Well, the great thing about catalogs is that they have a lot of items. That sounds like it should go without saying, but here's one I'm talking. I did actually work with this company, and it's just like infinite items.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, everybody was crazy about big data and third-party cookies and all kinds of inferential data that you could scrape off the universe. But catalogs, even back at the very beginning, uh, probably had the problem of too much data rather than not enough, even in the late 80s, early 90s. And so they were intrigued by my ability to do analytics with high volume data, which means that we started with first party data right off the bat. And even then, it's still somewhat inferential. Some of my clients were primarily gift. Uh, you know, I had one, and he said, and I would talk to him about his gift catalog, and he'd say, "Well, our catalog is items. It doesn't become a gift unless someone gives it." I said, "Oh yeah, like I'm going to buy world's greatest dad mug for myself, right?" I mean, it's like, he said, "Well, I admit there are some that are would only make sense as gifts." But anyway, that was mainly what he was used for. And the problem is that when I'm gifting something to someone else, it's a first party transaction for a second party, right? So it's still not something that I'm going to use. So my decision making process is different, much more different. And and third party data is way off in terms of value. And even in first party data, even in transaction data, even at the SKU level, it's very quickly descends into not very valuable. Plus, the average catalog customer buys once. The average buys once. 60% only buy once. So,
Hmm.
uh, how much can you infer from that? Right? Not that much. Even though it's way richer than someone who hasn't bought at all, just landed on your site or something like that. And so, I faced these problems way back in the 90s, and ironically, the AI people are just starting to face them now, and and I think solving them rather poorly. But that's just my opinion, I suppose.
Tell us more about that. So, what are some of the challenges nowadays with using AI and machine learning in marketing?
Well, the big problem is okay. So back to the premise. Well, there's two things to keep in mind. One is that it's easy to find the good customers and say, because my job was mainly, who's worth spending a buck to talk to again. We want to send this catalog out. It's $3 or something in the mail. It's big. But if we have millions of customers, that's a multi-million dollar decision. Cabela's, which was one of our early clients, they would drop 5 million customer names a month. So, whether you got a catalog or not was a big decision for them. And what they'd been doing was saying, well, if you haven't bought within the last 12 months, then we're not going to waste a catalog on you.
Mm-hmm.
So they pretty much assured themselves that everybody they were mailing was worth mailing, which wasn't the case. Actually, it was really massively not the case, um, because if you bought fishing, it would take 3 months maybe to get you into the cycle, and so the next catalog you would receive would be footwear or camping or turkey hunting or archery. There's a whole cycle that they went through the year, and then you'd get hit over and over with hunting catalogs. Boom, 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 boom. So you really, you may be interested in hunting. Most of the people who hunt also fish, and vice versa. Dick and Jim Cabela did, the but just because, like, I grew up fishing, so I can go into Walmart and buy fishing lures that I'm going to catch stuff with. I don't worry about it. I don't need to go to the world's finest outfitter to get the right fishing lure to catch something. And I'm also not a professional bass tournament fisherman, so I don't have to worry too much, right? Plus, I did work with North American Fishing Club and In Fisherman, and both of them sent me massive numbers of books and videos on how to fish. So I boiled it down to fish where there are fish and fish with someone who knows how to fish. If you keep those two rules, you'll probably catch fish.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't need a lot of help with the fishing lures. But when I started with Cabela's, I took up hunting, and I didn't know anything about hunting. So I bought some good stuff out of their catalog. And in fact, Dick Cabela sent me my first bow and arrow setup because I had made them so much money with the modeling. But anyway, so their number one customer complaint was, why do you send me all these hunting catalogs? Or why do you send me all these fishing catalogs? Because what we found was that not though almost everybody who did one did the other, not everybody was interested in that level of spending or support for both sports. In fact, only about 5%, which is pretty normal. Everybody thinks it's easy to sell something more to existing customers, easier than to find new customers, but often it's not the case. They've compartmentalized your company for fishing, like say Bass Pro Shops, and they don't think of it for hunting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now Bass Pro Shops has bought Cabela's and united the two, and I just am not comfortable seeing that Bass Pro Shops hunting catalog. That's what they call it. They should really call it. They should have kept the Cabela's brand, I think, and just said we're going to use Cabela's for hunting and Bass Pro Shops. I mean, obviously Bass Pro Shops is a fishing terminology. So
Mm-hmm.
so anyway, uh, what we found was that modeling monthly was very, very powerful in resurrecting old buyers, and that a fishing buyer could be mailed 3 or 4 years in the fishing window, whereas you almost didn't need to mail the hunting buyer at all the fishing catalog, maybe one, something like that. And so they told me that we made them $2.3 million the first time we did our system, because, like I said, anybody can find the good names, but the good names are not as obvious as people think, because there's hidden in the good names are bad names, and also hidden in the bad names are good names, and that's really the task of machine learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the challenges now are that people are trying to do machine learning without proper data sets, and that's staggering, if not impossible. It took me a couple of years to figure this out, because Gartner, it wasn't actually Gartner. I just researched this because I'm rewriting my book for the third edition, and
Nice.
I actually got in touch with somebody from Gartner, and we together tried to search for where Gartner said that it was 87% of AI projects fail. because I was convinced at the time that when that came out that that even higher percentage of marketing AI projects fail. But I didn't know why. And I didn't know why I could in the mid 90s do multi-million dollar incremental lift with modeling when nowadays they still can't get it down. It's a good puzzle, right?
Mm-hmm.
I knew I could do it. I knew I'd done it, but I wasn't sure why I could do it and no one else could do it, or not many people could do it. Well, it turns out that one of the requirements for machine learning is a labeled data set. And that, like when IBM tried to teach Watson to play Jeopardy, well, I think they did pretty well, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't just let watch it. I used to skip out of school in high school and walk home and watch Jeopardy. So they didn't let
Nice.
they didn't let Watson endlessly watch Jeopardy. That's not how they did it, right? What they did was they took the historical Jeopardy question and answer set, which they knew which ones were right. They knew the right answers. They didn't need to know the wrong answers if it didn't match up. So they could then come up with an algorithm. Let's say an algorithm was look for proper nouns and negations. Okay, because negations are really important, and a lot of times they're Jeopardy's worded that way. So, uh, something like, what state is the first president named after? And obviously the answer is Washington, right? So that algorithm might, for president, if it knows what if it knows to treat the president, first president, as a proper a proper noun, it's not really. It's president is a generic common
Mm-hmm.
noun, but if it's that smart, it's going to get it right. But it's not going to get um, you know what what is Washington?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it could be a university, a couple of them. It could be a state, could be DC, could be a president, could be a lot of things. So there's problems with any question knowing the context. And interestingly, Google, if you do Google search and you type in Washington, it will give you a number of different tries. Whereas Bing will try to guess which one you really meant based on your past history and all that,
Interesting.
which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
Google is more humble than Bing. But this illustrates part of the problem. What's the context? You know, might not have any context, might not know what the context is. So in that context, they could tell better algorithms. Some algorithms would get, let's say, 20% correct. Some would get 80% correct. And they would, and then, or maybe, and then maybe they take the 20% and they tune it a little more and it would up the percentage. And they could run it over and over and over and over on this labeled data set. So what would we like for a labeled data set in marketing? What would we like to know? Well, we'd like to know the key characteristics that identify customers compared to non-customers, or really, in the case of first-party data, who's going to buy again? What are the characteristics of people who bought again versus the characteristics of people who didn't buy again? Right? There really isn't such a thing as predictive modeling. That's a complete misnomer. What it really is carefully analyzing historical data, because all data is historical, right? The future hasn't happened yet.
Mm-hmm.
So the best we can do is analyze historical data. And the way we make historical data predictive is with the scientific method. So, uh, so if you said, well, gee, most of the time when I drop something, it falls. That's my observation, right? And you say, I wonder how fast it falls. And you fall over and over and over and over. And if you were, well, in my day, we had this little machine that made dots on a tape, and you drop a weight off the side of a desk in high school physics, and you can measure the distance between the dots, and you can see the acceleration of gravity. So you can come up with a close approximation. Well, not really, because there's a lot of drag on the tape, and there's but you can get somewhere. Um, Now, we have cameras and we have vacuum chambers and we have all kinds of things to improve on that. But the point is we can make repeatable experiments, right? And we can say, well, it looks like it's approaching this acceleration, but there's air and there's drag and there's etc. Um, if we took those away, maybe it would fall faster. So then you say, okay, well that's our hypothesis. Our observation is it's close, but probably not no cigar. So now you do the whole thing in a vacuum chamber and you find out, yes, indeed, it falls faster. You publish the paper, other people repeat the experiment, and we get what we call an explanation that there's this much quantifiable drag on the acceleration in Earth's atmosphere at this level, et cetera, et cetera. So then you start having, if we dropped a bomb out of an airplane, we would have a coefficient of friction, and it depends on how the object is shaped, and when you start to develop this explanation base, and then when you get enough confirmation, you get a theory, and so that you can say, well, if it's shaped in this way, it's probably going to fall at this rate, more or
Mm-hmm.
less. That's how we get predictive data, and then we confirm it, we retest it, right? But marketing doesn't like that. Marketing says, well, let's try this offer, 50% off. Okay, well, and then we get X result. And then a couple of months later, you say, well, that seemed to work. Let's try $20 off, you know, and it's a $40 item. So that's still a 50% off, but let's try that. And you find it gets Y result. And then you say, well, yeah, that's probably good, but let's try buy one, get one free. It's also 50%. And you get Z result. And then you say, well, that means that Y result is better than Z result. And I'd say, no, it isn't. You have to do an A/B split. You have to do it at the same time because you got to run a proper experiment. You have to cancel out the results. So we have this puzzle in marketing where no one wants to slow it down enough to get a real A/B split, to get real predictive modeling. So back to the puzzle.
On that, yeah. So on that note, so are you saying that marketers aren't running proper A/B tests, and that's why we're not
Oh, absolutely right.
predictive?
Absolutely. I went around the NMOA, which is uh, they changed the name, and I never can remember. It used to be New England Mail Order. Now it's National something about National Mail and Online Orders, something or other. I forget what they.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody remembers what the real one is if they knew the old one. It's rebranding. And so I asked them, do you test enough? These are catalog companies, big, well-known catalog companies. And every one of them said no. And they said, the most interesting one that I could name the source. They said, well, our CFO doesn't like it when we test because they say, the loser in the test actually gets less profit than the winner,
That's
right?
right.
Absolutely. By definition, almost never a tie. One does better than the other. And the CFO says, well, if you hadn't done this, then profit would have been this. So you've actually eroded the profit of the company, and I lose my bonus or something. Yeah, but you didn't know which one was going to be best, right? It could have been this way. And it could have been that we would have done way worse if we wouldn't have tested. And in the future, if we're trying to develop theory and prediction, then in the future we can utilize that information to carry forward that result into all of our subsequent mailings. So there's a huge upside to testing that isn't considered by the CFO. He just says, well, you're eroding margin,
Well,
you
I
know.
think that's a bad CFO. I don't think that's
Of course
representative
it is.
of the marketing world. So, and I agree. So, generally,
Well,
Google,
I'd say it really is representative that A/B splits, other than click-through tests, are Anything beyond that is very rare, my experience.
Okay, in my experience, it's exactly the opposite, but that's fine.
Well, good. I'm glad. I hope that's true.
Yeah, I
But
personally
anyway, back
run
to
a
so
lot of
back,
testing.
back to the puzzle. So that's why we don't get predictive. We don't really do predictive modeling most of the time.